Get the meeting started. Welcome to the November the 15th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Call to order. Well, the roll call, let the record indicate that all members are present except for Randy Camp. At this time, we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
I move we approve.
There's a motion to approve.
Second?
And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. Minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to look over the minutes
Yes.
from the previous meeting? Entertain a motion, unless there are any deletions, additions, or corrections.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The minutes are approved. Report from Mr. Code Officer.
No report tonight,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any old business to come before the commission? No old business. Under new business, item number 1 is a request for a COA, site development for a restaurant at 129 South Wayne Street. Mr. Code Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is just sitting diagonally down here southwest of the City Hall location. This is on the the southwest corner of West Highland and North Wayne. It's got a small little retail building on there now. The property is currently under some redevelopment. And so what is before the Planning Commission this evening is a COA for the Central Business District to allow for the renovation of that site, renovation of the building, and to allow for a restaurant. So the site plan the applicant prepared for us shows, and I'm going to try to use my laser pointer here through this little spot right here. So the existing building here is located on the western side of the site. This is oriented east-west and north-south. So the existing buildings here, the applicant proposes is to cover an area in front of the building and add some container-like buildings in the front as an accent to the actual operation of the restaurant itself. And they're going to add some lighting and some other features here and planters in the front. I'm sure the applicant can expand on this better than I can, but it's a complete renovation of the site to allow for the restaurant. They're proposing, again, to use some container-type buildings as an adaptive reuse of those structures. For seating, as I've shown here on the screen, I think they're going to cut those out and put in some booth seating. And I think the mirror side of that would be some type of service area, alcohol service area. But I'm sure the applicant can expand on this more than I can. But the recommendation is approval as submitted without conditions.
Thank you. Yes, we're calling anyone to speak for this. Yes, sir.
My name is Chad Draper. I'm the owner of JEC Development in the property, and just here to answer any questions. My understanding, it meets all the regulations.
Okay.
Chad, I have a question for you. Those are the containers in the dark gray area on the I guess that'd be the east side of the property, closest to Wayne Street?
That is correct.
These spots right here?
Yep. And would they be under power with full HVAC, or are they just going to be open? How do they?
One of them will contain a service bar for food and drink. So it will have powered water and, meet all the health department regulations. It will have a fan system installed, but no AC because it's open to the elements essentially. When it's open for business, it's open to the air. Not dissimilar from the barbecue restaurant that we created over there in that you can't really heat or cool it because it's open.
Sure. Okay.
The other container, very similar to what you see at Strange Taco on the inside, it's going to contain booths on the inside. So they basically oppose each other, and in the center will have trees and lighting and, be a really cool outdoor dining atmosphere is the idea. The building is very small, so we're looking for opportunities to create outdoor dining.
So is there not going to be any indoor dining?
There will be. I forget the number of seats, but there will be indoor.
So
It's just a small building, so it's kind of limited, And then Brad sort of pointed it out. It's hard to explain, but there's about a 20-foot deep patio on the front of the building there that will also have seating.
So the current parking lot will be completely removed for all of the
That is correct.
pedestrian and outdoor seating
Yeah,
areas?
the property's gonna be graded, nearly level, with some retaining walls that deal with the topography, but where the containers are, it'll be level to where the building is. And then a retaining wall will help, contain the dirt to get up to the Wayne Street level.
Okay. Only question I had.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chad. If there are no other questions, I entertain a motion. Well, yes, that's true. Is there anyone present to speak in opposition of this request? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Move to approve and had a
No
motion, a
conditions.
motion to approve? Second. And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? This request is approved. Item number 2 is a request for a COA, a site development for a restaurant at 701 Pavilion Parkway. Mr. Code Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first certificate of appropriateness that this commission will see on likely several other future developments. But this is the first one for the outlots at the pavilion, and it is proposed for a restaurant. They have submitted a complete site development package to us for review for the certificate of appropriateness. On the screen behind you is their site plan that shows an entrance that's already been constructed off of Pavilion Parkway, and it will go into a shared drive situation with the adjoining lot, and then they'll have their parking and access drive and drive-through areas next to their building, which is located on the east side of their lot. They have provided a pretty detailed landscape plan that complies with all the requirements for our certificate of appropriateness. All of the outlots in the pavilion are a little unique. They have 2 road frontages, so they're subject to our COA requirements basically on 2 fronts. And they have provided all the required landscaping to meet the criteria of the certificate of appropriateness for the corridor design overlay. Their architecture is proposed to include brick and architectural metal. They have included some substantial details. I'm only showing you some snapshots, but they had several other slides and plans that were in your packet that showed the detail that's planned for the building itself, but it was substantial in nature as far as compliance with our corridor design overlay requirements. Included in their package also was their entire sign package, and they have that in some pretty great detail. Basically all of the elements that would be added to the building were included in the package itself. It was the only area in the review that staff noted that there were some issues with compliance on the lighting, and that was where we proposed a condition at the end that the signs could not be internally illuminated. And part of that is the reason is that your corridor design overlay standards do not permit that, and their pavilion pattern book discourages internal illumination of all their outlot signage. So that was our review. We recommended approval subject to that one condition, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone present to speak in favor of this recommendation?
Yes, I'm Amy Pierce with 7 Multi-Site Solutions, and we are working with Made to Order Holdings on this Whataburger project. We are very excited to bring Whataburger to Monroe, and we will fix that sign issue, and it'll probably be, like as mentioned, the backlit sign or possibly the halo sign as appropriate for that area.
And I believe it was just the logo sign. The rest of the
Right,
signs were all
yeah,
backlit.
I went back through those and double-checked, and everything else was backlit. Any other questions?
So you're okay with the sign being
Yes,
externally lit rather than internally? Okay.
Do you know of any other cities in the state of Georgia that have Whataburger restaurants?
They're coming.
I'm familiar with it from a different state,
Ah, very good.
What,
North Carolina.
Okay.
Where is the home office for Texas? Okay.
It was founded in Corpus Christi, Texas, a long time ago, so,
Very good.
yeah, it's gonna be delicious.
Yep. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Is there anyone present to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve with the one notation of the backlit sign only.
Motion to approve with the condition. In a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried. At this time, we have some housekeeping to do, so if you want to stay, you're welcome to. If you don't, feel free to leave.
It's going to get real boring.
Thank you.
And I'll go on, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay with you. To the, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you didn't call the next item yet, I'm sorry.
Do what?
I apologize, you didn't call the next item yet.
Item number 3. Okay, you want to talk about item number 3? then?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was moving
That's all
on without
right.
you calling that item.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is your schedule for next year for your planning commission.
Oh, yeah,
This is
yeah.
pretty routine.
Right.
I did want to point it out tonight, because this hasn't been done here before historically that I'm aware of. So what we're proposing, we've looked at the calendar for next year. We tried to, I think, it was last year or the year before, I can't remember, where, we're meeting on weeks of holidays. So this is a pretty standard calendar. It's every third Tuesday on the calendar except for November, where that third Tuesday falls on the week of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we're proposing that meeting be moved to November 16th, which will be the Thursday prior to Thanksgiving week. That way it gives the planning commission and you guys and your families, the opportunity to not be obligated to this meeting, staff as well, if that be the case. I just think it's a good idea. There are no conflicts that we're aware of with the city's calendar to have it on that Thursday. So I would just ask that you guys, plan appropriately for that particular month. Everything else is standard third Tuesday of the month.
That sounds good. Everybody in agreement with that? Yep. Well, then we'll entertain a motion to approve that then.
I move we approve the proposed.
Motion to have a second. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that's approved then. Very good. Thank you for thinking of that.
Yeah, it's just, and I think that we looked at even the next year's calendar fall, we may even do a switch on Thursday. Thursday for Christmas and Thanksgiving the following year, because it falls on a weird week. And then HPC falls like the day after Christmas this next year. We're not doing, it gives a chance to people to be with their families and whatnot. Anyway, moving on.
Move on to item number 4, Development Regulations, update number 6. Mr. Code Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're amending the development regulations for the first time in some time. It looks like this is the 6th update. So we are proposing to, and I wish this was a little bit bigger on the screen. I thought it would be when I put this PowerPoint together. So please rely on your packets if you want to be able to read this stuff in detail. So in section 7.2, this is your preliminary plat specifications. Currently, it's kind of open-ended as to when these preliminary plats are supposed to be processed, and then the actual content, quality, what have you, being processed forward to this commission and then on the city council. So this is an addition to the beginning section of the preliminary plat requirements that basically outlines specifically when plats are supposed to be submitted to the city, the time frame by which we have to process them and get them to the planning commission itself. It also obligates the applicant to come in with a complete submittal. Because now you're currently, and since I've been here, we're processing those with corrections moving forward, and that, I'm not going to be specific with any project, but one has come through that made it all the way through an entire year with corrections never being done. And at the end, when the corrections came up, they were upset that their plat had expired. So this kind of eliminates that anomaly. It puts more on the applicant. to have a complete preliminary plat submittal. I mean, for the most part, they do come in with only technical changes. So these would give the staff a chance to make those technical changes, present them to you without corrections, and on the council for that reason, and without corrections. All right? On the same page there in 7.2, I'm going to use my laser point here. We're going to drop down the page sizes here. I don't have a desk big enough for this, neither does Laura, if you've been in her office. So, but we need to have a standardized paper size coming into the city. 24 by 36 is pretty standard across most jurisdictions. Moving on, you can see we're going to change some wording here. There's a problem with the actual approval stamp. It says sketch, and we've changed that with our applicants now, but we're going to put that in the development regulations to have the correct word of preliminary, not sketch. Let's see. We're going to remove the actual planning commission void year date and enhance the one done by the council. Because when this commission approves those preliminary plats, you're not actually the final word, the council is. So the wording on these are a little confusing when it says 1 year from this date and then 1 year from this date. We're going to finalize the wording on that to just be limited to the council and keep the planning commission at the recommendation level if that's okay. We have a stamp in here that was unnecessary. The Water and Gas Authority does not approve anything at the preliminary plat level. And then the wording at the mayor and council level, we're going to solidify and define when plats expire, which still is 1 year from the date of approval if they do nothing, or the expiration of their site development plan. So if they get a preliminary plat approved, we go through a period of whatever number of months, and then a year comes, but they have site development plans approved and they're working, then the plat continues. But if they cease activity with approved site development plans, then the expiration of that plat, and then we'll expire the plat if it's been more than a year. Hopefully this language does that. I've just in my discussion with a few folks internally, this has been the policy of the city for years, but it's just never been codified. So we're actually putting this on the plat. So it's clear to the applicant, developer, and everyone that's involved when and where these things are terminated. So moving on into section 7.4, very similar requirement, very similar standard for a final plat submittal, time that staff has to review it and time the applicant has to respond, and then getting in that on council level. You guys don't see final plats. It goes straight to council, but we're just shoring them up with the same requirements as a preliminary plat. We're also standardizing that sheet size, 24 by 36. Let's see, moving on page after page, you can see there's lots of changes here we're not making to the final plat requirement except a date here and an approval stamp. We're taking off the 19, not going to see that year anymore. Then we're going to clean up some of the existing stamps here. There's actually the stamp I just showed you that was being removed from the preliminary plat is actually needing to be added to this section. So there should have been, probably was some cut and paste errors years ago where that occurred, but we're going to get that cleaned up where the utility stamp is actually in the right part of the development regulations. Lots of fun stuff going on with these development regulations, just some technical cleanup. And so in the minor subdivision plat 2, we're moving on to this section here, 7.5. We're doing the same thing as approved by code enforcement officer. You know, we get all kinds of random size plats. Some of them coming as small as 11 by 17. If someone has a scale smaller than that, that should be subject to the code enforcement officer's review. Planning Commission does not see minor plats. That's approved at the administrative level. And then we're standardizing that sheet size again. We're trying to keep those sheets down to a reasonable size. Moving on, we're going to get rid of the unnecessary stamps for minor plats. They do not go in front, the owner is not required to sign. We can leave this on, but it's not necessary. I've not seen a plat yet that I've approved that had that. And then they do not go in front of mayor and council, so we can remove those. And then we're going to clean up some of the language here for the enforcement part. We're already using this language now. It has been used for years. We're going to get it added to our development regulations. So let me back up. I think I left something off. So moving on into Article 8, this gets into a little bit more policy requirement. So in Article 8, there's this anomalous statement about we're going to discourage through traffic in streets that should be interconnected. It's nonsense. Taking that out doesn't apply. It doesn't comply with your current comprehensive plan that has encouraged connectivity. So we're going to remove that. Let's see, Section 9.16. Has some section numbering issues. It starts with the letter A in that particular section. I didn't show all of it, but that whole section's got some numbering issues. And then finally, a policy situation in the retreat we had, if you guys will remember, council, we discussed this one specifically about removing bonds as a performance surety for development. So we're going to limit those to letters of credit from a bank or cash in escrow. So we're going to remove the insurance bonds from the requirement. And that was all of the development regulation amendments in a nutshell.
Okay. Under that item that we just discussed, are there any questions?
None for me.
Then I'll entertain a motion that,
I want to ask if there's anyone from the public.
anyone from the public to oppose? All right.
Hey, Lee Rowell here. This is just for a matter of record. Wanted to discuss the B3 warehousing that's in your packet right there.
Next.
Is that on there next?
That's next.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing this, the development regs.
that first?
Okay.
Okay.
Hearing none from the opposition, then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Then it is approved. So, item number 5, zoning text amendment, number 14, Mr. Code Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was also some of the ones we had discussed in our planning retreat, but this is the formalization of some of those that we had talked about, plus some of the things we're showing up from our comp plan approval this past summer. So the First Amendment you're seeing, and this is in section 620.3, this is in your commercial land use table. We are recommending that the self-service mini warehouse be struck as a permitted use in the B3 district, and that is coupled with the actual warehouse, just a basic warehouse with that. Those are standalone warehouses that deal with bulk goods, so we're asking that those be removed from B3. Then moving on into the M1 table, we're going to continue to allow self-service mini storage in B3, but we're adding a note, and if it's legible on the screen behind you, but we're going to specifically limit the location of many self-service warehouses to places that are not within the federal opportunity zone that's within the northern flank of the city and our urban redevelopment authority boundary. So if you have an M1 zone property and you want to do a self-service mini warehouse, it would not be permissible in those locations. And where that basically ends up being, there's a lot of industrial zone property, M1 property, east of the city, Cherry Hill Road, Industrial Park, Unicia Drive. There's a lot of M1 there, and there's a lot of M1 zoning near Vine Street and South Broad. So we're going to allow that to continue to be permitted in those two locations as a use by right for many self-service warehouses. Moving on into section 644.2, this is in your overlay district requirements. So the 644 section deals specifically with the MHDO, or the Mars Hill, way off on that one, Monroe Walton Mill, some old zoning wheels still turning in my brain from another jurisdiction. The Monroe Walton Mills Historic Overlay District. This is an infill district that we amended last year to allow 4 units per acre, or down to 0.4 of an acre. But all the requirements in there, when we talk to those who wish to develop there, they don't realize that those are condominium requirements. So this is a clarification statement that's in the applicability paragraph, because there are no lot standards for MHDL development. They're all condos, because we're trying to get more density into a smaller space, and so they have to be condominium, not lotted. So this is just a clarification statement. So 645.3, I think it's on the same page here, you can see. We're adding existing 2-family and duplex dwellings. There's a lot of those inside the city that are on single lots, multiple duplexes, and you have new owners of these duplexes that are coming in just wanting to divide them, and they cannot because they are zoned R2, and they are not permitted to be infill lots. So we're asking that existing 2-family and duplex dwellings be added to the infill overlay district so they can benefit from this requirement as well. That would also increase some ownerships and probably break up some of the, monopolized level of ownerships of those entities throughout the city. But this would allow those that come in and buy them can break them up. Let's see, moving on to section 700.2. This is, we're amending this section of your commercial zoning district dimensional standards. Basically, we're adding a note. We're not changing any of the standards, but we're adding a note. You can see it's going to be note number 8. We're going to allow 0 lot line setbacks. This was just allowed in your pavilion, the Monroe Pavilion amendment that was done this past summer. One of their options was to allow 0 lot line for their building so they could subdivide it. At the same time, we've had other inquiries in the city in multi-tenant commercial settings that are shopping center level type situations that have big parking lots. They've approached the city to allow them to be subdivided so they can have fee simple ownership. Your code prohibits that now because they have to have setbacks that have to be met. So this would allow a multi-tenant commercial location similar to a shopping center. Keep in mind something like the Napa on East Spring, Quality Foods, what have you, to do a fee simple lot. And then they have to have a shared parking requirement if they do so. That way we can maintain continuity and a seamless environment for those locations if they do go fee simple lots. See, I'm trying to read the screen, so that's 810. In this section, so we're actually, you can see the requirement above, and this is an existing requirement. We require 5 adjacent designs, or 5 different designs on adjacent lots in any new subdivision. And from a permitting level, it's kind of nightmarish when they come in and they do one at a time and pull those down. So we have to keep track of those to make sure we're in compliance with that requirement as well as the applicant. So we're asking that an amendment be added to them to provide a matrix to us of the recorded final plat showing the matrix of the 5, making sure we're not going to have duplicate home designs on adjacent lots and comply with this requirement. We're not asking that there be more designs required. This is just simply to make sure that that requirement above is going to be complied with. And then if you'll recall too from our retreat, this was direction of council to add a requirement for new single-family subdivision developments that they shall be rezoned and not to stand under their current R zoning or what other zoning they may have underneath them currently. If they're undeveloped and they're not in any form of process, this would trigger the requirement for them to go through a rezone with the city of Monroe. And that is section 820. Then moving on to the final amendment for the zoning ordinance tonight, that is section 910. This is your single-family standard section. We're asking to remove this trellis extension language here is a little vague. It basically has been able to allow, it's been interpreted to allow the city to have pergolas and things of that nature to comply with this requirement. I don't think that's ever the intent when you read the language about primary and front entrances being recessed and then having roof extensions, shed roof extensions. Trellis extensions are open, and they're basically shade structures or outdoor garden type structures. So we're going to remove those from being allowed. We're going to actually require there to be roofs where I think the actual original intent was roofs. And finally, there in that same section, we're going to modify the garage standard for the city completely in these developments. There are some great examples I could point to where the side and rear requirement under number 8 currently is not functioning properly and has created an unusual design or probably an unwanted design from its original intent when that requirement was written. So based on our discussion at the retreat and recent variances that the council has seen regarding garage location, we're amending this section to dictate that garages be located 20 feet behind the front of the heated floor area of a dwelling or a front door, whichever is greater, basically is what the language in this requirement says. And this should alter, some home designs and some new developments and hopefully encourage a better home design. The goal of this requirement is to make the home of the focus of the lot and not the garage. And that was an explicit feedback that the city had received in the comp plan update with photographs that had been presented was to get rid of garage dominant appearances. Part of it is that developments themselves would be designed around the car and not the house. So this pushes the garage to the back, hopefully would encourage some rear alley type access. We're asking that to be preferred and not a shall requirement. So that's what the intent of this is to try to push the garage to the rear and make it secondary on the function of the lot and not the primary function of the house design and the lot. And so when it comes to the actual last requirement, we're just going to strike that altogether because we want this to be applicable subdivision wide and not allow cul-de-sacs, not encourage cul-de-sacs, number one, because they're just basically subsidized driveways, and get rid of that requirement altogether to make these garages 20 feet behind the heated area or the door. And that's all the fabulous amendments we have before you all tonight.
It's enough.
There's plenty. There's enough.
Are there any questions? Now, we need to speak in opposition to this.
Just a matter for record only. My name is Lee Rowell. I represent the Rowell Family Partnership and Still Family Realty. We own the original Breedlove Farm, and that property was rezoned and annexed into the city of Monroe in 2001. It is currently zoned B3 commercial. All the property that's north of Monroe Pavilion up to Monroe High School, which is about 300 acres of B3, is currently in existence as you see it. And for the record, Brad and I spoke on this matter yesterday. I was concerned about the warehousing functionality there, as you see, under B3, which, just for clarification, I think Brad and I agree that we wouldn't want to see something large, like a large industrial warehouse sitting there, between Monroe Pavilion and the high school, for example. It wouldn't look proper. But there is the business park clarification. I think farther on, Brad, do you know which item that is? Under office park, business park? There might be some type of small business, for example, like a heating and air contractor that might have office in the front and some warehousing in the back. And I just wanted a little clarification on the definitions of warehousing.
Sure.
And that's all I was trying to specify.
Sure. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
If I can I respond?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So, and Lee and I we had a pretty robust conversation about this because, obviously, he's a stakeholder that could be impacted by this because of the amount of undeveloped B3 land he has. So we talked about what warehouse means. Now, you're not seeing an amendment now. In the future, you will, where we're going to incorporate the NAICS into our land use table, which would make it easier on Lee and us. Because the warehouse that we're striking from B3 here is the 85 corridor. This is the bulk transfer and storage.
Distribution
of-
warehouse.
Yeah, you're
Right.
talking about semis to semis. So we're talking about big warehouses. We're not talking about the little guy that Lee is, I think, referring to when
Right.
he talks about someone that's running a business that warehouses items inside of for his business, and he has a small-scale operation that runs
Right.
trucks out of it. He's an end receiver of the items that would warehouse items for his business. I don't personally see this warehouse definition, which is really bland and just says warehouse, as what we're talking about. So you do have some languages in your code that talk about like contractors. So we're talking about, I think, what was the example? HVAC.
Like a HVAC.
You have an
HVAC.
HVAC guy, he's an end user of the products he actually is going to install into a final location. He may have a storage facility at his location. This is not the type of land use we're talking about striking here. So we would allow that continuously, or continue to allow that, and those are permitted uses in the B district currently now. You have a host of those, contractor and developer offices with facilities, office center, and I believe it says building supply store wholesale, so those are going to continue to be allowed there. And I interpret the contractor with facilities as being that guy that has space, that he receives maybe a semi-truckload worth of stuff, but he's the end user. He's not, this isn't distribution, this isn't like DC. DC is big, trucks coming in, trucks coming out, when I think warehouse, that's a warehouse. So I don't know if I clarified that enough.
Yeah, you did.
In the future, though, I think there's going to be more resources for the city, for Lee, for us as a staff, to rely on, like the NAICS, as definitions of saying this is the scale that we're talking about here. In fact, we would code, these land uses would have a code that has the NAICS, so we could roll out in the future. I'm talking about an amendment you don't see yet, and there will be a future round of amendments in early 2023 where we're switching our land use.
Yeah, and I was trying to envision something like the Gwinnett Progress Center that you might have seen out near Boggs Road and 85 and 316 in that area. There's a lot of that type usage where you've got office and then, some warehouse in the back, that type of thing. So I just wanted a little bit of clarification if that was appropriate.
Is that,
I think that
Good
answers
did
it.
that do
good
it?
dialogue, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Liam.
so much.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? Then we'll entertain a motion to approve,
I
or
will motion to approve as recommended by the staff.
a motion to approve as recommended, and a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is passed. I will entertain a motion at this time for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
And I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.